Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. Today is June 7th, 2021. This is episode 63, Evernote Tasks and Moving Productively. As you can imagine, I'm very excited about this episode. And so each week we review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. And to do that this week, we have a surprise guest. We've invited Art Gelwicks to the show. Art Gelwicks is a productivity and collaboration consultant, blogger at theideapump.com. He's the host of the Being Productive podcast, and he joins us on Productivity Cast each week. Welcome to Anything But Idle, Art.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me at the last minute.
Happy to have you. Happy to have you. So this is National Moving Month, so it turns out. Did not know that. And
I'm moving. And
so I thought we would have just a quick comment kind of discussion. Hi, Linda. How's it going? If you all are joining us live, by the way, hello. How's it going? Feel free to chat in the chat panel, and we'll be happy to interact and answer questions and all that fun stuff. So in light of National Moving Month, I thought we would tackle the topic of really how to move productively. And I'm sure that all of us have moved in the past. And I've recently had a move in the last year and a half, right before the pandemic, moving to a new home. And so I know what that's like. And so I wanted to talk through some of those pieces. First and foremost, how soon do you think you should be planning a move? Like if you have a move that's imminent, how much lead time should you take?
I'm going to defer on the side of caution. I'm thinking months out. As soon as you know it's on the radar or even a possibility, that's when you start planning. At least that's when I would, because from that point to the day the door closes behind me and I hand over a set of keys, or even just moving from one office to the other, it's going to be constantly rattling around in my head that this could be going on and I need to do this and I need to take care of that. And what happens if I forget this? So I would start early and just start that whole capture process right away. There's a lot of good checklists and things that you can use out there and templates to help you with that, but every situation's unique.
Augusto, I know that you've had a few moves out there, Augusto.
One or two. I split my moves in two parts: before 2004 and after 2004, and happened to be with the discovery of GTD. My first moves were a mess. I moved country first. I moved from Venezuela to Colorado, and then I moved from Colorado to Pueblo, Colorado to Denver, Colorado, and then I moved from Denver, Colorado to Los Angeles. And they were chaotic at best, and mostly because lack of planning and mostly lack of knowledge. From 2004 going on, I have moved cities, states, multiple times. I have been in LA, from two different places in LA, two different places in Bakersfield, Fort Wayne, Indiana, two places in Indianapolis, and now in New Jersey. So, yeah, I have moved one or twice.
What have you learned?
To what I have laughing when you say how much time, and most of those corporate moves, I have not had that luxury of when will be convenient. It's like, we need to be at this day. That said, as I said, before 2004, they were kind of a mess. After that has been much better. I have checklists that I pull as soon as I heard we may ought to maybe move. The checklist is printed. And it is really funny. When we moved to this house, I still getting mail from the old owner of the house. They never did that. And I remember, and then the only reason I know that is because it's part of my checklist. But one of the things I learned is to get rid of stuff. Regardless if you move into a larger place or not. And I tried to search for an article to share on the notes from becoming minimalist, but it has nothing to do with becoming minimalist, and really to pay attention to what you're moving. And we move into different styles. My wife keep everything that she can, and I get rid of everything that I can. it's how it works. So we have boxes who has been closed, okay, with tape that says Colorado 2003, okay, belongs to my wife. And I have no boxes that says Indianapolis, okay. I agree. If in my theories, if a box is more than 12 months and I have not need anything that is on that box, it can go to the trash. I don't even need to open. But that's my criteria. But I think it's important to do those checklists. And Art mentioned there is a lot of resources on the web that I didn't knew how to exploit on the first of my moves, and keep the list so you can rebuild the list. And as you look into reducing, and I'm in a mood of reduce as much as I can on certain things, I suddenly notice, oh, how about this? Next time I move, I should remember. And then I go directly to that list and collect it. So the checklist is your friend. There is a lot of movements. You are not going to have enough time. Doesn't matter how long you try to plan. So as Art says, as soon as you can start pulling this list and understanding who is moving or not moving with you. Okay. In my case, I said my wife will hurt everything. So I need to pay attention what is coming on and not, and also what she will take care of and what I need to take care of. And there are two criteria for that. One is what is important for me, because moving in means different things for different people. There is people who moving in means having internet and where their screens are. That's enough. There's other people who need to have food on the pantry and be ready to set the table and have dinner. That's not me, by the way. Okay. So, but you need to understand what is those important and capture all that in the list. So at least you make sure that all the people involved have that concept of move in, and it's a possibility for them.
It's an important point you bring up, how it's different for everybody, because the checklist aspect, while it's so critical, I think it's critical for a different reason than most people think. To me, the checklist gives you the opportunity to free up the mental cycles that you need to deal with the unplanned events. And every move has those. So you'll never get a checklist put together that covers everything. But if you have the important things covered in that, then when something goes awry, the truck goes to Indiana instead of, Iowa, you can adjust, and you can adjust quickly because you're ready to take care of all the other stuff. It'll handle itself. So that gives, I don't want to say a peace of mind, because there really is never any true peace of mind in a move, but it can be slightly reassuring.
Well, and I can give you an example of that. When we moved from Indiana to New Jersey, our checklist plan says, okay, in January, we are going to travel to New Jersey to find a home. Okay, we started the process of finding a home, and we put the house in the market. In December is Christmas. The realtors is Christmas. Could go fast, could go slow. Nobody knows really in Christmas. Is all bets are off. Okay, we put the house sold in 12 hours. And now the plan to come and search for a house was more, that's the initial moving, and we need now to find temporary housing and all those problems. But having that checklist was just add a set of things for that checklist to allow us to move forward.
Yeah, so a couple of highlights here. One is I think 30 to 60 days is kind of minimum for me in terms of a move. I really need 2 months to be able to cycle through, say, for example, just making sure that mail that's being received is automatically being identified for putting in those change orders with various companies. I like to kind of receive all of those pieces. Since I don't get a lot of mail, I like to pay attention to those. And also, it just gives me enough lead time for purposes of being able to do that reverse or retrospective planning. And so I like to set up the checklist and then put in all the dates from the point of when we're going to move. I've never had a time when I didn't know exact dates for moving, so I'm pretty lucky in that sense. I've been able to determine a date and then put everything in the calendar that were major milestones back toward the first day where we need to pack. A couple of tips. Plan for moving day, like food for the kids, food for yourself, making sure that you have toilet paper, like all of those things you don't think about when you're in transit between two homes. You want to make sure you have all of the pieces of the puzzle so that you can have a kind of the conveniences that you're used to en route to wherever you're going to. Pack your stuff in reverse. So put the stuff you need last, in the truck first, and the things you need first, you're going to pack last because you want to get those things out. Also, think about where you're moving to. So, for example, we moved to a 5-level new home, and it's a townhouse, so we have multiple stories. And what I did was I packed everything in order in which it would be taken up, so that the first stuff went to the first, top floor, which is the roof deck, and then everything got put in each level after that, so that the movers, when they were bringing things up, they weren't having to go back and forth and kind of mishmash things. They were putting things in from the top, then the next level down, then the next level down, all the way down to the garage level. That was just incredibly efficient for them and really helped them move things. And that meant less time, less cost, and really just a much more convenient move. I also labeled all of the boxes. They're all numbered. I actually color code them. I know I'm a bit much, but that really does help for being able to identify for people who don't know your home and don't know your stuff, to be able to say, red goes on that level, green goes on that level, yellow goes on that level, and so on and so forth. And it's just very easy to identify. They can't get things wrong. You can sticker the furniture, you can sticker the appliances, and so on and so forth, all the same color. And it really helps for consistency in that move. And I will never not do that. It's just so helpful. The other part that I would say is that in this process, it's a really good time to do an inventory. And this is not just for like insurance purposes, but as Augusto noted before, like decluttering, this is a good time to purge maybe things that you don't need. So I think that moving is actually a really good opportunity to kind of deal with some of those pieces that are, is there like a particular piece of artwork that you have been trying to like let go of, or some mementos that maybe have some sentimental value that may be a little negative. It may be a time for you to be able to let go of that stuff during the move as well. And also think about the unpacking process. How can you pack things so that unpacking becomes easier for you? And many times people pack things in such a way that's kind of just like, shove it all in a box. Well, that doesn't really help you get it out of the box or out of the packages, in a seamless way. And so I always think about, how am I packing this so that when I get to the new place, it's going to be able to go up. So for example, I invested in those little boxes with the hangers in them. So they're basically, mobile wardrobes. All the hung clothes went onto those hanging things. The boxes moved and they came off the hangers and back into the closet on hangers. There was no having to fold and unfold and those kinds of things, and it just saved so much time. And then I sold the boxes to some other person. It was very lightly used, and so we ended up selling all those boxes to someone who then moved it in, used it in their move. So it was minimal cost to me, and a very, very easy transition for moving things like that. So think those pieces through are what my suggestions would be.
Yeah, and I will add to what you said 2 things on 2 different conditions. If you know where you are moving, before if you are going to pack or they come to pack, sort where you want to be them. So park, hey, this is going to be on the office, this is going to be on the attic, this is going to be, so things get packed together. If you don't know, try to think, what goes together, so that way, again, as Ray was saying, when you start unpacking those things, you make it easier for you. So my office, all the boxes that when we arrived to this move and the truck arrived, my office were all the boxes in my office. There was no missing stuff. So I agree on those hanging boxes are completely well worth the cost of them.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So this was a fun little discussion to get us started. Happy National Moving Month to anybody who might be moving, who's listening to us, and hopefully that helps folks. And, there's like probably a little bit of sentiment here about not just spring cleaning, because we're making our way into the summer months for those of us who are in our hemisphere, those who are in the southern hemisphere, or going into your winter months. It never hurts to kind of think through what you're doing and what you're planning for. Like, if you think that you have an imminent move, now is the time to start decluttering. And it's a good moment in just thinking about, hey, what should I be doing to kind of start getting rid of some things that I don't need? All right. With that, let's take our way into our top stories of the week. And so the first half of the show, we do our headlines regarding big and small tech. And then in the second half of the show, we do more of the productivity articles that we've been reading and looking through. And so let's get into our headlines. Augusto, what is our first story this week?
Chrome OS may be going back into smaller application launcher design that resembles the original. I never play with the original or the beginning of the Chromebook, but as we have mentioned, they are trying to go into giving the launcher, including the launcher, encourage people to have the launcher and make everything smaller space-wise so they can get more out of those components. But you guys know way more about Chromebook and what happened at the beginning than what I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're going down this path because it was there for a while. They had almost a desktop style launcher for a while, and then they made this shift to something that was more, I want to say, tablet friendly, because we had the first 2-in-1 started to really roll out in the Chrome space, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe we'll make it touch friendly. Well, the problem is that's not intuitive for using like a desktop. So it'll be interesting to see them bring it back. I can't help but wonder if at some point this won't be a toggle and an opportunity to flip and have the two interfaces change depending on the configuration of your device. So if it's a 2-in-1 and you have it opened up in clamshell mode, you get the desktop equivalent. If you flip it around like a tablet, you get the touch interface. It's possible. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but I would not be surprised if we saw that eventually happen.
Yeah, and with connectable keyboard devices, the ones that are more tablet, with keyboard, kind of like Surface Pros or iPad with a keyboard attached. Presumably, it will be able to know when the pogo pins are connected, and it will display a different launcher for that. And those kinds of variabilities. I really like it. I actually don't like the fact that it takes over the whole screen. So I like the new launcher style. It is very reminiscent of Windows, and that gives me a nice feel to it. But I think you're right, Art. It would be nice to have an option and just determine how you would like to be able to do it and be able to set it either way. All right, next story, Augusto.
So we continue in Chromebook world, and Google Message integration in Chromebook just got a new name. So that way, if you were confused before, the goal is that you get more confused. That seems to be the name of the game. I pick a name, die with it, give features, but it's really confusing. At least for me, coming to the iOS world, we've been having iMessage since 2007, okay? Just before that, there was a name also that lasts like 7 years. So I don't understand why in Google you never know what the name of the thing is. But
again,
iMessages has kind of got long in the tooth, didn't it? I mean, it's still called iMessages. I don't know. It just seems like right. The thing is.
They scare easy.
Hey, at least everybody knows the name and he's not confused somehow.
Hey, if Google was, if nothing else, they are consistent in being inconsistent when it comes to messaging naming. So if
true.
they had stuck with the name, I would have been more concerned. So,
but I'm curious. So they changed this from Google Messages for the web to now device pairing. Do you see this as a sign of things to come? Do you feel like that? Yeah. Okay.
I absolutely think that it's what they have recognized is the value of having the messaging client being able to be accessible from the web, especially from the web on Chrome devices, and taking it to the next level and being able to have that machine level integration of not only messaging, but notifications and running apps and having that connection between the mobile device and the Chrome device. Yeah, I absolutely see this as the direction they're going. It would be limiting if they had just continued to just call it messaging. So it's not really a surprise. Device pairing could use a little bit of a cleanup from a marketing perspective, but we see where it's going. It wants to be that dual device. And if you've heard me talk about the Samsung integrations before, I think this is, again, one of the things that you're seeing is the blurring of the lines between Chrome OS devices, highly mobile ultrabook style laptops, and mobile phones that are so powerful they're basically one of these devices. We're seeing these things just blend into one another. And this is just another example of them recognizing that, yeah, eventually they all have to talk to each other.
All right. Onward to Amazon Sidewalk.
Amazon Sidewalk.
I have Amazon Sidewalk as the next story.
Oh, I have the upcoming of the Asus.
Oh, okay,
Chromebook.
yeah, we could do that story and then go back. Yeah, go for it.
I don't know why he has that one, but okay. The Asus is coming to a new Chromebook, the CX9, and it has a feature that they said first time for Chrome OS. I honestly think is the first time for most platforms, and is the trackpad has a calculator or a keypad. It's really what it is. So you will be able to use the mouse pad as a keypad or numbers to enter numbers on the calculator. And I think it's brilliant, to be honest with you. I think it's an awesome feature. Aside of the power of the thing is really high-end, prettier. Chromebooks are more and more surprising me on the level of power that they have. And this is a beauty. I don't know.
I like the idea that they're trying new things. This to me sounds like more of a novelty play in the space than anything else. All I can think of is, Apple's TouchWiz or whatever the heck they're.
Yeah, but this seems useful.
Well, yeah, and that's exact. Appearances can be deceiving. That one seemed useful too.
I take
and there are devices out there, and they're not Chromebooks. They're in the Windows side, but I won't be surprised if we see them on the Chromebook side. Matter of fact, I think there was an Android-based one from Lenovo. I think it was one of their Yogas that was a dual screen configuration, and the second part,
one of the Yoga
you were
books,
actually typing. Yeah. And while nice, it's not a keyboard. It's not that functionality. I can see them doing more with the touchpad. They have the opportunity from a software standpoint. The question is, what can they do from a hardware standpoint? Can they take it? Because to me, the next logical step would be to turn that into a little display and be able to then configure that to whatever you need it to be. But it's nice that they're doing something different. I love Asus products, and I will not knock them for trying something different.
I'm really a fan of this particular device. I'm not going to get it. I'm still feeling like the Galaxy Book 360 is my current contender for winner. Once I get a new laptop, I just really feel like it's the top contender in my book right now. But the CX9 is really a beauty. I'm a little bit cautious of it only because it's not getting the Tiger Lake chip. I don't understand that, but they took that off the product page. So maybe they're going to delay it. Maybe they will get it. Maybe they won't. We have some supply chain issues right now, obviously. Mm-hmm. So maybe that might be why that's the case here. But if it could be supercharged with the 11th gen processor, then I would be very inclined to try this out. I'm a touchpad user in terms of the number pad user, and I really like the idea of having a number pad and having that functionality directly caked into the touchpad. Mm-hmm. That's something that would appeal to me, so I can see its value.
And don't get me wrong, I think it's a great idea. Having bought multiple laptops that are oversized specifically because the user of those laptops wants the numeric keypad. So now everything's wider because of that. It just makes logical sense to pull that down and forward to be able to work on that. So I hope it's successful. I hope other manufacturers say, hey, we can do this. This doesn't look too hard. And we start to see it become more common. It's one of those things. It's an early days thing, and I reserve judgment until I see a couple more try and play with it.
And I don't need it if I have a touchscreen laptop. Like if I have the Galaxy Book 360, is that the Pro 360? Either way, that device has a touchscreen. So bringing the the calculator up on screen and just tapping on the screen, the calculations ends up being less of a hurdle for me. But I do like the idea of having the touchpad available to me in in that configuration for me to be able to do calculations. So it's a nice feature. I think that for folks who are dealing with finances, dealing with business numbers, that kind of thing, it's a nice feeling. And I use my calculator all day. Like I'm constantly, I'm Windows R Calc to launch my my calculator on screen. Like it's like built into my fingers to be able to launch it from the command prompt.
Now, what would be nice to see is for them to take the device pairing and allow you to use the calculator on your phone and then send the values directly into wherever you're typing on the computer.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be a nice little feature. So
Absolutely.
developers, we're talking to you. So,
all right.
So the next news is interesting. Amazon is trying to turn Madame A into a home security system. And it is really interesting because when I look at the number of Madame A's in my house, they're really enough to cover the whole thing. I'm happy to cover and buy one more for the garage. That is probably the only place that there is not one. And they are now putting a program called Guard that is going to be free, where you can configure so it recognizes the smoke and CO alarm sound, glass breaks, and turn on or off lights when you are outside of the home. But also they put Guard Plus for $49 a year. That is really not a lot. That then will allows you to do emergency helpline calls from the Echo, activity sounds, sound dog barking when motion is detected outside, and sound a siren when activity is detected inside. $50 is not a lot. Even if you put it on the $4.99 a month and you end up paying $60, it's not really a lot. And you already have the devices are already there. And I installed the Madame A on my parents' house exactly for that reason, because there is 2 levels, and if they hear noise on one of the levels when they are on the other one, they are old. They cannot move that fast. I wanted them to have, that ability. Now, for $4.99 a month, I can set up that automatically, so that way they don't even need to hear the noises. That is the other problem we have. They're getting old, and now they go to sleep and they don't hear the noises. So the Madame A will stay up paying attention to this. So I am really excited about this. I think it's a fantastic thing.
I've been using the free Guard mode for several months now, actually, and I have it configured into Madame A routines. So, for example, I have a routine that says I'm leaving now, and when I trigger that, it turns off my living room lights, it leaves one lamp turned on, and it flips all of the Echo devices to this Guard mode, which if you see it, it actually takes a little white light and just makes it circle on the top like a little Cylon keeping track of everything. So it will respond. I've had it trigger for smoke detectors. I've had it trigger for CO2 just to test it out and make sure it hears it and works. And it works great. So it makes sense. I mean, honestly, if you're going to wear the privacy tinfoil hat, if you're going to bug your house, you might as well put it to your own advantage and allow it to keep track and monitor. The paid service I haven't looked into in detail yet, but I am doing so specifically for the reason that you're talking about, Augusto. Having elderly relatives and being able to keep track of them and allow them to keep track of things, it helps. It helps a great deal. There's another mode that ties into that's available right now. That's a caregiver mode that you can enable, which it's not hard to set up, but it's separate from this. So I don't know that I would consider this the equivalent of, a high-end monitored security system, because again, it's not hardwired. It's not battery backed up. There's a lot of ways that this could be conceptually defeated.
Oh, that's lack of imagination. There is 2 of those in my house that are battery packed already.
Right, but there's still ways to conceptually defeat this. So I don't know that I would necessarily consider it a high security thing. But for example, just knowing that if a smoke detector or a CO detector in your house goes off, it's going to notify you on your mobile device. That's a big chunk of peace of mind. It really is reassuring to have that. And I actually had a similar one trigger off of my Wyze camera system. The Wyze cameras can be configured to do that as well. So, and they all integrate together. So there's more than just these things being voice assistants. And I think you're right, Augusto. I think this is something that there are lots of reasons to look into this and to try it out.
Yeah, I have in our house the Ring and the cameras that connect with all the other products, and we have two doors, one on the front, one on the back, and I love the fact that you can configure the back to give you an alert if there is movement, no matter what, because there should not be movement unless I'm up and the kids are up, and fine, I don't care. But it's really, really nice, and a couple of times I have walked through the back and entered through the back, and my poor wife has received not a nice alert. She has freaked out about it because you don't think about it, but it's making their purpose.
Yeah, there's absolutely value to this kind of extended piece, and I think we're going to see more of that too. I mean, this is just using the ambient sensors that are built into the devices, but as you tie that together into things like the Wyze systems where they have the door contacts and the window contacts, and then you tie it back end into the automation pieces like Zapier and IFT, then all of a sudden this becomes a very powerful, controllable environment for you. And like I said, it can give you a great deal of peace of mind. So,
fantastic. All right, on to our next story.
Hands-on the SmartBook 5 Color eNote. And we mentioned this when this product went out. It's a full review. You can go and play with it and read it. But it is exciting for me to see how many e-readers are coming. Last week we covered the Kobo. This week we are covering this review. E-ink and color e-ink is coming. People is getting normal to see these devices now, and I think that stream making to the hands of most people will make them just more and more powerful. So I am really excited about it.
Yeah, so this is a competitor to probably the Kobo Ellipsa that we talked about last week, plus the Remarkable 2 tablet. And I was just actually working with a client and learned that the Remarkable 2 tablet actually does have a desktop application that allows you to be able to, once you synchronize to the Remarkable Cloud infrastructure, you can actually export in PDF or PNG, I think it is. I think also SVG, so the scalable vector graphic file format. And so that actually gave me a little bit of reprieve there because, as I noted last week, the Kobo Ellipsa allows you to be able to gain access to your library OverDrive account. And so that's a huge benefit, I think, to me, to having a device like that. Also, the price point can't be beat, where you're paying only $399 USD. Here, this particular product, the Color, the V5, gives you a Color eNote tablet, and you can get it in English, I suppose. It's currently in Chinese markets. I'm guessing it'll probably be available in other international markets soon. It's a little bit more pricey. I think it's like $599 USD currently, and so I like it. I like the capability here. It's running the Boox. I can never figure out how to pronounce that. I think it's Boox, the Onyx OS there, the Boox OS, and so not quite Android, but a variant, and we have a really nice tablet here. I think overall, though, I'm still between the Kobo Ellipsa and the Remarkable 2. But now that I know that I can actually grab my notes from the Remarkable 2 and then just toss them into Evernote, I'm a little bit more inclined to go with the Remarkable 2 here. I know it's a little bit more pricey, but I just feel more comfortable with the Remarkable 2 here. But I'm actually inclined toward the Kobo Ellipsa as well. I'm a little indecisive about either of those.
I was interested in this until I got into the operating system itself, because you're right, it uses this Boox OS. Problem is, it's based on Android 8.1, and it hasn't been updated recently. So that to me just worries me for long-term support and upgradability of this thing. Otherwise, it looks interesting. I mean, it's got 36 LED lights in it to give it a white display. gravity sensor, dual microphone configuration. It's got some decent tech in it. Here's where I get a hang up though on this. The price point you're looking at this, can't you just go buy an iPad? So, okay.
Just for the record, I did not say any of that.
No.
For the record.
Because I could go buy 2 Samsung tablets as well. So,
yeah, I mean, like I would get a Samsung Tab A or something like that to replace this instead if you don't want to spend that price point. But I can also see, like, in the Chinese market where this is going to be released, that market would be very open to this and not particularly care about the Android 8.1 issue as much. And I don't know what they're going to do about updating that. They clearly haven't in a while, and they need to. But I'm still, if I were looking, I would certainly still be looking at the Kobo Ellipsa against the Remarkable Tablet 2. I mean, those two devices just side by side look and feel like they are both quality devices that can do what you want to do in an e-reader where you want to annotate and do those kinds of things. I'm really interested in seeing how the market works with the Kobo Ellipsa versus the Remarkable 2, and well, we'll see. I'm still inclined toward the Remarkable 2 though.
Well, and here's the thing though, and I can't really dissuade this. iPad 10.2 inch, Wi-Fi model, 490 grams. This thing, 240 grams. Half the weight.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's big. Now, it's only running a 2800 milliamp battery, but then again, it's not powering, a Retina quality screen, so doesn't need it.
Yeah,
it definitely
the
will have
screens are. Yeah, the e-ink screen in color. Those are just so much less power intensive. So that's a real
Remarkable
benefit
2 is black and white, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct. So is the Kobo Ellipsa.
Okay.
Yeah. So this V5 is a color e-reader, which is why you're going to pay more money for the screen.
Yeah,
versus
that color make it worth it.
Well, and keep in mind too, it's 4,096 colors. It's not 16.8 million like you have on other things. So the colors are going to be there, but you're dealing with a box of Crayolas versus the entire palette. So you have to think about what you're going to do with it.
I'm going to agree with you on that comment, except that when I noticed for taking notes, that is really what I want that device for. How many colors are you going to use?
No, that's true.
5.
That's absolutely true. If that matches the purpose that you need for taking handwritten notes or doing that type of annotation, then yeah, there's no way 4096 won't be enough. And
I switch between 3 colors ever when I'm taking notes. I mean, I don't need that many colors, but I like the options. All right, on to our final story in our first half. Augusto, what's our next story?
Gmail for Android and iOS finally lets you update your Google profile picture. They are improving the app little by little. I still don't understand why that app is not really powerful, but this is a complaint. I moved certain things on that app, and it is painful. I need to go to the Chrome browser to fix some things that should be able to fix on the app, and you can't. I don't understand why, but I'm glad that now you can do the profile picture and it's getting better.
Yeah, Google just wants you to centralize everything by going to myaccount.google.com and doing those kinds of things there. I don't really care if Gmail allows me to change my profile picture. What I do want Google to do is allow me to change my profile picture and for it to show up everywhere as the same photograph. I have a photograph in my account that continues to show like a 15, maybe 20-year-old photograph, and I've updated it in my account. It's just in certain places like Google Calendar or otherwise, it still continues to show this old image, and I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't know why, and it is incredibly frustrating. So, fine, I'm gonna do it in Gmail just so that I can see if it'll update in other places, but it is incredibly irritating.
Just admit it, Ray. You like that early 2000s look. You're enjoying that, that kind of
It shows me with a lot less gray hair. I could tell you that.
Well, there
much.
you go. Okay.
Hey, I don't care about my hair color, but it is very different, and so I want it to be the most recent photograph, and it does not show it to me all the time. What are you gonna do? All right, everybody, we have reached the halfway point of the show. And so with that, we're going to step away for a word from our sponsor this week, which is Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. When we get back, we have more headlines to cover. Then we'll do new tools of the week, our story of the week, our featured story of the week, and then we will close out. See you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating. And there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined here with Augusto Pinaud and our guest today, Art Gelwicks. Hello, gentlemen. And back to our headlines. Let's get into our headlines for our productivity articles that we've been paying attention to this week. Augusto, what is our first headline?
The first headline is an article from Max Sparky titled "Software is Eating the World and Cars Are Next on the Menu." And it's a commentary of an article came in Wall Street Journal about Apple getting into the automobile business or not. But it really comes with a couple of interesting arguments about really what software is doing and what are the risks. It sounds really nice to have your car. Months ago, I read an article, really nice article, talking about or praising a Tesla for a software update that really update the vehicle. And at the same time, I was complaining because I was trying to get something fixed on mine, and they wanted me to do something that I wasn't going to when it was a software update. So yes, software, it's going to continue revolutionizing all these industries. And, seems like everybody's putting their eyes right now in vehicles and cars and how we can make them better and via software. But as the article mentioned, we need to be careful because software also means bugs and hacks and other things that, hey, imply certain risk too.
This is not this isn't new to the car world. I mean, we look at things like Teslas, we look at things like the ID.4s from Volkswagen. The electric cars are bringing some of this thinking because it's like, ooh, it's tech, it's electronic. This has been around for years and years and years, and so many vehicles can't be maintained unless you have a computer reader, you've got specifically licensed software, you have specific controllers, and even dedicated cables to be able to interface with the car. And literally, I had a car that was made in 1996 that the engine would turn off because the computer would tell it to in specific situations. This is the type of thing that we have as the challenge. It's not so much that the tech is carrying us forward, it's that it's dragging everything else along with it. It's determining that everything needs to be tech-driven, everything needs to be computer-controlled, and what that winds up with is literally massive quantities of vehicles and maintenance people who wind up disenfranchised out of this entire thing. Because if you're an old school mechanic or even a new school mechanic, there's a lot of stuff you just can't do. I mean, the days of the shade tree mechanic are long gone because there's a lot of things you just cannot touch and control. And when one of those, electronic ECUs goes bad in a car, that's $1,000. I mean, that's without batting an eye. and there's no way to diagnose it, and there's no way to work on it. So they have a valid point. I just think that this isn't new, folks. You're living with this now. I guarantee if I were to go out to your car right now and it was made from 1996 on, you have a little data port just under your dashboard. And that onboard diagnostics port gives me access to your computer in your car.
The OBD2 port.
Yeah.
So I've my thoughts are kind of mixed about this, right? We are in a transition point, right? So in the mid 90s, as you noted, Art, we went through this transition where computers started getting embedded, basically RTOS, chips. Basically, real-time operating systems were being embedded on chips and being put into vehicles, and they're now controlling most of those vehicles. I think that was a huge benefit to the automotive industry, and I saw people pivot. And now we are in a position where if we do electrify more vehicles, I mean, just the announcement of the F-150 going electric, that truck by itself, the most sold vehicle on the planet, I think, at least in the United States, it's like a $42 billion industry for that one vehicle. When they electrify, that is going to it'll be a forcing function for electric vehicles for the rest of the world. And that means there's a great maybe sustainability thing there. But I think more so, it means that if you're going to go get certified as a mechanic today, you're going to get the opportunity to learn that kind of software skill and the hardware skills necessary, I hope. I mean, we've done a really poor job, at least in the United States, of workforce redevelopment. But at least in the automotive industry, we have seen a remarkable shift happen in the way in which we do education in that space. And I hope that happens here. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
It's truly, you're right. It is the kind of thing where we have to stay along with it because it's just the new normal. This is not going to go back to the way it used to be. It will continue to grow. And I've done things like reprogram my Jetta to change how the windows work through software controls and configurations. But that, again, is that developing skill set. When you start to look at a mechanic now, you have to stop looking at them as somebody who just turns a wrench. He or she is going to have technology skills that are going to be on the level of most networking engineers, especially if they're dealing with performance level vehicles or higher end ones. Talking about the Ford F-150, I have a slightly different position on that because I think it's the right idea for the wrong market. I think though that market is going to be resistant to something that doesn't have the range of a diesel or doesn't have the range of a V8 gasoline-powered engine, doesn't have the same level of power. Does it have the body reliability? Does it have the battery reliability? There's going to be a lot of questions for a long time. I was kidding about it with my son-in-law. We said, "Yep, that is the perfect retired dad truck." Because it has a giant trunk in the front end that there's nothing in. It has the back end, and he's going to wash it like every 2 days. So it will have an audience, but I don't see them being on construction sites unless corporations invest in them. But individuals,
I think this is a commercial vehicle for commercial contracts. I see this as being a really great truck for a commercial fleet, and I think there will be a lot of consumers who will buy them just because they're F-150s and they know the brand, and then they can iterate from here. They can make them better. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I think that the future is electric vehicles. The future is autonomous vehicles, and that means less deaths on the road. That probably means a lower environmental impact from not having, the carbon dioxide being produced. So I think we have two positives there. We're just in a transition point, and it's going to be difficult. And that's the part that I kind of think about whenever this topic comes up, is that it's just tough. And we need to make sure that we're having people doing the workforce redevelopment, training people, and all of the external small businesses that support that industry, right? You don't large conglomerates, like GM and Ford and otherwise, that's only part of the story, because there's all of this downstream, industry that supports or is supported by those big decisions. And so now is the time when, those people who are capable of doing that work can do that. Think about like all the 3D printed, opportunities to remodel electric vehicles can be done once we get to that point. So I'm really excited for this period of time, and I hope that we can get through it better off than we were, and I think we will.
Yeah, it's going to change the game in so many ways, and having fixed configuration chassis and things like that where you can modify by just swapping out the body configuration. There's a lot of opportunity. I will say, though, I have a problem with any vehicle that's putting like a 14-inch tablet on the dash as part of their control system. Please don't do that anymore. People have a hard enough time with not paying attention to their phone, much less that TV screen you put in there. So.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. I understand why a self-driving vehicle would have a touch screen and that kind of thing, but I also feel like this sense that they should still be paying attention. And maybe I'm just old and I'm like have an old mindset, so to speak, about it. But I really do and am concerned about people's attention to what is going on in front of the vehicle in the direction it is moving. And so we do have to deal with some of these societal changes. And I imagine that in several generations, cars will look very different and people will interact with them very differently. I, for one, if I don't ever drive a car again and it just takes me where I want to go, that's all I care about. So, I want to be able to do what I want to do. More importantly, if it's safe enough, I would even like to just if I want to drive to DC right now, get in the car, I could do work, I could nap, I could have a conversation, I could go have a video meeting. Doing all of those things while the car does its job would be a huge benefit to me. And so I really do want autonomous vehicles to come, and certainly an EV vehicle would be preferable for me. The problem is that it just doesn't have the longevity right now, right? Like if I tried to suck power by running a video meeting, and all on all my devices and all that stuff over the course of roughly 3.5 hours of drive, you're talking 300 plus miles to get to DC from where I am. The EVs just don't have that longevity and power, and so it ends up being a hurdle for me. I would really love to see us get to that point where we can have roughly a day's drive and the ability to have autonomous vehicles drive us there. That is the ideal for me.
Personalized public transit is where this will wind up being. Being able to have a vehicle pick you up, take you to, let's say, a local train station where it loads itself into a car. The train takes the high speed Acela down to Washington, and then the car unloads itself and takes you to that last mile destination. If that can be reached, when that can be reached, then there's a lot of reasons to not have individual vehicle ownership. There's a lot of options for people to say, I don't want it anymore. Just as many people are going to be like me who want to crawl underneath with a wrench and get dirty. So.
Don't get me started, because next I'm going to want my flying vehicle. They promised it to me when I was a kid, and I want my electric flying vehicle. I'm sorry
to tell you, I was also promised that when I was a kid. The Jetsons bring all these things. Where is my Robotina? That was how it was called in Spanish. I have no clue how that lady was called in English, but where is that? Where is that robot that was going to clean the house and make me breakfast and bring me good? Rosie. Where is Rosie? That's what I want. Forget about the vehicle. Where is Rosie?
The flying car scares me to no end, because the majority of people I see can't drive in 2 dimensions, much less 3. So
it would have to be autonomous. I mean, it would have to be.
Just give them balloons. Let them float around. We'll do tethers. I don't care. I'm all turn of the century steampunk. That'll work. They don't fall as fast out of the sky.
All right, moving along to our next story about mobile smartphone ownership and broadband adoption.
So the article talks about how much, since 2019, so that's really in the pandemic, broadband technology has changed, but more importantly, how much users or how many users are adults are now mobile-only internet users. So not only you have seen the increase on broadband, but also has seen so many users going out and stop using or going to pure mobile.
I think it's at 15% are now mobile only in the United States alone. When we look at the various data, we still see quite a number of at least in the US market, a number of Americans, about a third of them, are still experiencing problems connecting to the internet from home. We still have a problem with mobile broadband, and we have a problem with connecting the right computing power to the individual. I mean, this is kind of what I read in this research. I think it's positive that we have the capabilities. I think it's still one of those things where we need more right matching of internet access with the devices, so that people who are, it's not just rural, right? It's not about rural versus urban. This is about low income versus high income and the disparity between those. Lower income populations don't have as good or solid broadband access, and that means less access to education, less access to jobs, less access to people. And when we separate people from other people, they become radicalized in ways that I think are kind of, unfortunate for not just here in the United States, but around the world. And so we need to keep people like interacting with people. And by doing so, they keep normative beliefs. And I think we've actually done a poor job of that. And so we've left some people out, and that has caused this shift in dynamics in the country that I think is not good for democracy. It's not good for just like being able to talk to your neighbor. I can disagree with you without being disagreeable. And a lot of that is lost when I am living in a world that some people don't have access to, and so therefore they've built their own world, their own reality in that space. And so we need to kind of figure out how to make this work for everybody. And I think equity means also better and stronger democratic norms in the U.S. So that's kind of where my mind went when I was reading this article, and I'm very concerned about that. Of course, there's the productivity implications here as well, which is how does the labor force do remote and hybrid work consistently if they are left out of the market because they don't have access to strong mobile broadband?
Yeah, I think the mobile broadband piece is just a core pushback to the lack of physical infrastructure and the difficulties of deployment of physical infrastructure, especially when you get out past urban areas. Even mid-state, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, and you go mid-state, and there's whole sections that there's basically no cell coverage, much less data coverage. So those people wind up being isolated, just as you're talking about. This is a type of thing that when you have 15% of your population supposedly operating purely off of mobile, well, are they doing it because that's the best option for them, the most convenient option, or the only option? I'm inclined to think at that number, you're looking at something more in the first and second categories. It's convenient to them, and it's the one that they like. But it's not their only option. It's not that default. When you start pushing in the range of 50 to 60%, now you're going to have people that have no choice but to use that mobile functionality. And I think the devices are to the point where that's okay. I mean, we talk all about 5G. Well, 5G requires a pretty hefty infrastructure investment, even though it's wireless. It's got to be spread out on just about every pole to cover an area. So getting that device, if that's an option, I go all the way back to our earlier conversation, that idea of device pairing. If that mobile device can become my connection to the wireless signal I need access to, then I can pass my Chromebook through that, and I can have access to the things I need. Now what we become challenged with, though, is cost and availability and reliability.
Yeah, and again, I think about the younger generations. If they're being raised in lower educated households with low income, they're less likely to have access to broadband, and especially mobile broadband, which is where their peers are capable of then being able to excel, and that just continues to reinforce economic uncertainty for them in the future. The future will be mobile and broadband, right? More of that will be based on, like the ability to just like take my laptop and work anywhere. That is a very freeing thing, but not everybody has access to that. And that really makes me feel, just, I don't know, sad, empathetic, sympathetic for that generation of people who who deserve good jobs, good paying jobs, but they don't have access to the technology. And that's the part that I really want us to be focusing on here in the States is let's utilize the wealth we have to be able to make those people and give those people access to the technology so that they can compete in the marketplace of the future. And that's going to make America great. That's the thing that's going to make America excel. Really, any country, no matter where you are, your country's ability to compete is when your younger generations. When I retire, I want the young people to be able to do the jobs so that I can retire and kick my feet up and and have my country still being a productive country. And my concern is that we're doing things that are going to compete against that reality there. So.
Yeah, anybody who tells you the digital divide is not a real thing either doesn't know or doesn't care, because it is. And it has a negative, detrimental impact to not only individuals, but societies as a whole. And that has to be dealt with. And
so from disparity to emotional intelligence and writing. Augusto, what's our next article today?
Next article comes from Inc. and it's Why Emotionally Intelligent Minds Embrace the Rule of Writing in Reverse. And what they call writing in reverse is, on the article at least, is you have to reverse the roles between the writer, you, and the recipient, your audience. And he's talking about how to respond better to certain things, and we tend to, as humans, tend to write long, emotional responses that not all the time has the content that we need or has the questions. How many times you get an email that after you read 5 paragraphs, you say, and what is what you need? And you need to reply, what is what you need, please? So look into that writing on the verse, think what they need, what they're trying to do, and what is what you need them to do, and write the email that way. I don't know if I can consider myself emotionally intelligent that way, but without any doubt, over the years, I have learned that the more emotional my response is to the initial receiver of their email, the more that they need to hold into my world before I can respond.
Yeah, I agree with the context of the article. I mean, the concept of providing too much content in communication is often you trying to convince yourself and them to do what you're asking. And it's an attempt to be persuasive or attempt to justify the request as a whole. But also too little can be abrupt, can lose context. You have to listen to what you're writing. And the old trick of writing something and leaving it in your draft, that's a great trick. I mean, I use that quite a bit, where I'll write something and just say, it's just going to sit here until I'm ready to send it. I actually do that trick with OneNote all the time. I'll create an email in OneNote as a note, and then I know I can't accidentally hit send. It's just sitting there, and then I can go back to the context later and say, ooh, that was kind of rough. Why did I say it that way? Or realize that the messaging is left behind. So the sensitivity is important, but it's also important to be clear. I think we've all gotten emails on the flip side of the coin where there's so much emotional waffling within the email, you have no idea what they actually want and how you can help this person. So it really becomes a balance as to how much of your communication is going to help them understand, but also help them feel comfortable with what's being communicated as well.
Yeah, I follow the bottom line up front method and military kind of flavor of email writing for many years with a little bit of a modification. And it seems to do the trick for me, which is whatever I'm asking, you ask it up front, then you go through the process of identifying background details and then repeat what you're asking at the end of the email so that a person who is more detail oriented like I am is going to want all of the underlying details, but the person who is a director style, kind of in the Kiersey temperament sort of perspective, is going to read that first line, know exactly what you want, and be able to respond to it. And so that helps different personalities deal with different emails, especially when you're sending emails to multiple parties and expecting them to understand. I also like the idea that if you're directing an email to multiple people, to address each of the persons in the email who are in the to field, so that you're capable of saying, John, do this thing. Jane, do this thing, and so on and so forth, so that you're addressing each individual in the email. And that shuts down the number of emails that need to be circled and cycled through any given thread, because people can respond in line to just one message as opposed to many different messages going off in permutations. So I really like that kind of method that I've used for myself over the years, and has worked well. So, but I agree with the premise of the article on the whole, as you said, Art.
I'm a big fan of using the subject line to identify the request. So if I need an update on something, my subject line is going to be need an update on licensing. And then in the email, it'll have the specifics and break down who I need from what and things. But that way, as soon as everybody sees that show up in their inbox, they're like, okay, so I know what this is about. Not like meeting minutes. What the heck is that?
Yes, clear subject lines are really, really helpful. All right, Augusto, what is our next story?
So our next story is a bunch of tips how to use Google Calendar much better. Not only, the article's features to optimize your remote work hours, but really, even if you are in the office, there is a ton. I think it's 13 or 14 or 15 tips of how to use it better, from scheduling your calendars, your events directly from Calendar, to how to use Zoom or schedule directly with Zoom, share your availability. If you live in this world of Google Calendar, it is a great article to see and to check. It has really more things than what I thought it was possible, and I used that, and how to connect to some Exchange servers and everything else. So if you are a Google Calendar user, this may be a really interesting article to read.
Yeah, the only one that stands out to me is that if you are trying to track billable time, that toggle Chrome extension is just brilliant, because you can just click on any calendar event and click the little toggle button, and it starts tracking, and it grabs the data from the calendar so that you can immediately start tracking your time. And the toggle also works in a bunch of other web-based programs. So I use Remember the Milk and Evernote, and whenever I'm in the browser, I just click on the little icon, and it grabs the data from that particular task and starts tracking from Asana, wherever I'm at. I just click the little toggle item, and now it's off to the races tracking the time, so that I can quickly and easily capture that stuff. So really, really helpful. And with Toggle, you can then download the data in a CSV, so you can then import it into different places that you might need to take that billable time and slice and dice your data. So if you're trying to know what you're using and how you're using your time, it is just a really helpful tool. And so it doesn't just connect to Google Calendar. All right, onward to no meeting policy. This company has a no meeting policy.
After today, I need to say I agree. I mean, the problem with the meetings, I think no extreme is appropriate. Okay, I don't think the meetings we have seen is appropriate, and we know Microsoft has done, and we have quote here articles on the show how Microsoft is trying to give time to the people to breathe between meetings to meetings. But I think the other extreme of, okay, now nobody can do meetings. A meeting well-timed, well-established, with an appropriate agenda, it's really useful. The problem is not if we need meetings or not, is how much your team knows how to make a meeting. When you go into a meeting, okay, to make decisions, but what you do is discuss, that is a waste of time. Different is if you say, we're going to have a brainstorm meeting, great. But what happened, in my opinion, experience, is most people don't know how to set a meeting. So the meetings are set as a thinking time instead of as doing time. That said, I read the article. I don't know if I can agree with having no meetings, as much as they drive me crazy. I think, especially in the remote world that we are living, and we are going to continue to live more and more, I think what we need is to teach the team to make better meetings.
Yeah, Go ahead, Art.
I was just going to say, reading through the article, I mean, this idea of the no meetings, I think the devil's in the details when they talk about meetings, because I don't know that they necessarily qualify as like collaborative work sessions as a meeting. That's kind of the feel I'm getting from this. It's not like they don't have everybody or groups of people talking to each other at the same time. That's operating within their environment, apparently. But the concept of like a status meeting or something like that is eliminated in their structure. Personally, I think that's a fantastic thing. I love that. I think it's great because the tools are out there and there's no reason to have that conglomerated waste of time that these turn into. But that said, there are opportunities where working together in a real-time session can be extremely useful. But like Augusto said, the majority of the time, that's not what we're doing. That's not the process. And especially in a remote environment, and I'm going to soapbox here for a second. We keep talking about this remote environment. We have been working in a time-shifted environment for years because we're working in a global workplace. So if you're trying to if you've ever tried to schedule an international meeting, you know that it will cost you hair just to try and set it up, because you can't get people at the right times at the right places, or you have some people who are on the call at 11 at night just because you've got an executive that has to be there at 9 in the morning. So being able to leverage these tools and, quote, eliminate unnecessary meetings, I'm totally for. I just think, as you said before, there's a contextual piece where can you get the maximum value? The flip side is, though, is learning how to use this collaborative tech. Get good at it, start to work with it, turn it into a core part of your culture. That's one of the things that this seems to say, is that they have made this a core part of their culture. And every organization I've seen, every team I've seen where they've tried to do no meetings or reduced meetings and have failed, it's because almost always leadership has failed to make this part of their culture so that their people can adopt it, get used to it, and integrate it into their operations.
I think you guys covered it. All right. So with that, we are brought along to our new tools of the week. And so every week, Augusto and I are scouring the interwebs for the various stories, the productivity and technology news that we bring to you here for Anything But Idle. And we come across a lot of tools. And so we'd like to share those tools with you in the new tools of the week segment. And so this week we have a few tools, and so does Art, to share with you. And so first up is the first tool, which is because we were talking about National Moving Month and moving productively, there are a wide variety of home inventory apps that are out there. But the National Association for Insurance Commissioners actually produced their own app called the Home Inventory app, very aptly named. And it is a free application available on iOS and Android. And it gives you the ability to just track the inventory in your home. It's a free application, and so it's out there. I know that there's Sortly and there's other applications that have kind of a freemium model where you have some base of features and then kind of scales up. But the Home Inventory app is just a free application, and it's available for you. So if you want to do an inventory, I highly recommend it. It really helps you in insurance environments. You know, if you have a fire, even if it's a fire in just one, part of your home, or water damage in a part of your home or on a part of your property, it's just really, really helpful to know what was in there so that when the insurance claim process begins, you're capable of making sure that you have all of that data together. Augusto, what is your tool this week?
So my tool this week is the Alexa app, and for in my case, obviously for iOS, but you can find it for the other applications. And the reason is, again, as I was saying, you have Guard, you have many other features, you have the announcements. You can do so many things with this app. And one of the things I like now is I can type the announcements. I have 2 little kids, so you can add emoticons, and they do different sounds that the kids find fun. So that's once in a while you are the joker and the clown of the house. It's part of your responsibility as a dad. But it is a fantastic way to manage all your needs from Madame A, and we haven't it covered since we cover the Guard today. I thought it was good to cover that too.
Fantastic. Art, what's your tool this week?
Mine's a little one called Sesame. It's an Android app, and it's a universal search and shortcut tool. It's available, and it integrates with several of the launchers that are out there, such as Lawnchair and Hyperion. And it is just a neat extension, indexing the content of your phone, being able to find contacts, being able to find applications, and create shortcuts to things that even your launcher doesn't support. So I installed this originally with a launcher. I have since uninstalled the launcher, but I kept the search tool. And being able to quickly go through and find a cross-indexing just by keyword entry has been extremely useful. Ray, you'll like this. They have a switch so it will search Evernote as well. So you can do that search from the desktop or from the application. So, and it's
fantastic.
Quick.
That's great. I love all of these tools that just allow for indexing your data so that you can get faster access to it. I'm just really, really pleased with any tool that allows you to do that. Cool. So Sesame, the universal search and shortcut app. All right. New tools out of the way. That takes us on to our featured story of the week, which is that Tasks is now available in early access for Evernote in the new Evernote only. So in the new Evernote desktop and mobile applications, you now have access to a new feature called Tasks. And so what do you think, gents, about Tasks in Evernote? Have you had a chance to play around with it? What are your thoughts about the task management market? Where are we going here with Tasks? Oh, and in disclosure, I am an Evernote certified consultant and one of the Evernote regional leaders for North America. So clearly I am biased toward loving this new feature. But I also feel like it is missing some features, and I'm hoping that they do come to the platform. And yeah, but interested to hear your thoughts.
So I'm excited about it. I think for the heavy Evernote users, it is good to have everything in one place. For the people who is entering the time management work, it's great. It's a beginning application. I don't know for the people who have already solved that problem, who has robust implementations in other places, if it's ready. But I think it's good. I think anything that come and challenge the status quo, it's good, because that will just improve everybody else.
Yeah, it's about... Sorry, Ray. It's about time. This is a kind of feature that, everybody asks for in all of these applications. I hear about it all the time in OneNote. It's nice to see this has been integrated in, because to me, it's less about the function and it's more about the future of Evernote. Evernote is recognizing that they need to broaden their horizons a little bit. Excuse me. Stay connected to their user base, and this is one thing that just makes that an easy connection.
Yeah, I'm incredibly pleased by this, because the person who is a power user of any other task manager, this is not going to bring them into Evernote necessarily in this first early access feature set. I think that once Evernote makes this more robust and connects the pieces of the puzzle here, which in this case is your notes, to the tasks that are being taken, I think this is just incredibly powerful. I've already found power, and I've been testing this feature set for quite some time now. And I find that for myself, the ability for me to now track in my notes commitments others are making, in essence, in GTD lingo, the waiting for context, just being able to track all of my waiting fors in a place that can now remind me to remind them if I have not gotten what I'm expecting in time, has been a major opportunity piece for me. So now I'm able to take my meeting notes like I normally do. I'm in Evernote, or I'm capturing it into Evernote after the fact, and then I add my task, add a reminder. If there's a real due date for some deliverable, I can put that due date in, add a reminder, and keep myself apprised of those things. And now that I'm not sending many emails, I'm capable of tracking all of that in one centralized location tied to the meeting notes. I can see a lot more opportunity there, but I am really pleased with how Evernote has implemented it. I am looking forward to them increasing some of these other pieces, but most importantly, I am interested in seeing how third parties integrate with Evernote tasks. Right now, we have a lot of integrations to the note itself and to the reminder set to the note. I'm going to really love the ability to set up Zapier and IFT to tie to the Evernote tasks now and being able to do things with those pieces there. So
Is that
that's the part
is that on the roadmap of being?
well, Evernote's API is exposing tasks. So that's possible.
A big thing. That's a big thing.
Well, my data's there, right? Like that's my second brain. So, and I know it is for hundreds of millions of users. And so the goal here is to be able to tie back to those now granular action steps that can now tie other things to it. I'm just really looking forward to seeing those kinds of things come together. So, all right. We have reached the end of our featured story of the week. And so that brings us to announcements. Augusto, what do we have in announcements this week?
Well, the first thing we have in the announcements is tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern Time, we are going to record Anything But Idle 64, commenting the WWDC, the Apple event with Michael Slewinski that happened today. And tomorrow we are going to meet with Michael to make the comments of the show. I was only able to watch half, but the first half I watched was really exciting. So I'm looking forward for tomorrow, given I'm the Apple fan of this. On June 9, on the Personal Productivity Club, we have a talk with Jeff Siegel and myself studying the word or the question, what can I gain from the health perspective as well as the productivity perspective. Also in June 9, Asana has a Focus on Flow Summit, if you are interested. And finally, on June 24, Microsoft is starting to tell us that something is coming. There are rumors from it's just going to be a little thing to it's going to be Windows 11. So I don't know what it's going to be. I don't have other than the rumors, but it's there.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see whether or not it's a new skin on Windows or whether it'll have some new features. I think this is cosmetic and kind of branding, and we'll see what happens there. But either way, I'm excited. I mean, this is the first time they're making an announcement in quite some time about Windows, and so I think this is a good opportunity for them to do something. I believe that Microsoft under Satya Nadella has made a remarkable turnaround, and so I have great trust in him and what he's doing there with the company. So that being the case, thank you, Art, for joining us here on Anything But Idle. How can folks keep up to date with what you're doing out there in the world?
Best place to come find me is just look up theideapump.com. That's where I am. That's where I write. That's where I post. And that's where you can talk to me.
Fantastic. Thank you, as always, for joining us here on Anything But Idle, Art.
My pleasure.
All right, Augusto.
And then we're too.
Thanks so much, as always, for joining me on Anything But Idle, helping me put together the show and all of that jazz.
It is fun every week.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Please let us know if there's a story we missed, but note that in our show notes on anythingbutidle.com, you will find our show notes with links to all the stories, the tools of the week, and inclusive of that are our extra stories that we didn't cover. So go through those extra stories before you tell us if we've missed anything. But we also have a text transcript on the website. There's both a readable version and a downloadable version. So if you click on that read more link, it'll expand it. You can read along while you listen or watch the episode directly on the page. And there's also a PDF download link there as well. But if we did miss something, you can head over to our contact page at anythingbutidle.com, or you can tweet or DM us on Twitter at anythingbutidle. If you have a question or comment about the show, feel free to go ahead over to anythingbutidle.com and leave a comment on the episode page or click the contact page and let us know those thoughts. If this is your first time watching the live stream, please feel free to click the subscribe button, and that gets you notified when we go live weekly. We usually do this on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, so it'll just notify you when we are going live. If you're listening to the podcast show after the fact, obviously we do have the live show, but if you're listening to us after the fact, you can go ahead and subscribe to the podcast or follow it in Apple language. You can also go to the subscribe tab on anythingbutidle.com and learn instructions on how to do that. Ratings and reviews also help. So if you can, feel free to click the thumbs up icon on the video, rate or review us in the Apple Podcast app or in the Stitcher app or wherever else you're listening to the podcast that allows you to do that. That helps us reach more personal productivity folks. And so thank you for doing that. And so with that, see you all next time on Anything But Idle Here's to your productive life.